What's going on, guys? Today I'm back with another H.A.T format market watch for you guys. You guys have really been enjoying when I make these videos, so for the time being, I am going to continue making them. Obviously, I don't want to make this every week or anything like that, as sometimes there's not that many shifts, so I don't want to bring you guys, just pointless videos and stuff like that. So when there is enough stuff built up that's worth talking about, then I will make one of these. And with that being said, obviously, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not telling you to go out and buy out any of these cards or sell the cards that you have if you see that the price is up. That's completely up to you, but I do want to bring some awareness to a handful of different cards, some of which might be up in price, and maybe if you have extras or you're not using them, maybe it is time to get rid of them. Or if a card is low enough in price, maybe it is a good time to pick it up. But again, that's completely up to you. And obviously with any sort of past format, sometimes these cards can be affected by the current meta and what's going on with that. So if any of those are changing, I want to bring you guys awareness on that. But anyways, guys, let's actually get into this video. So the first card I want to talk about is going to be Digusto Phoenix. This card only has 2 printings, and while it doesn't see the most play in H.A.T format, there is a couple decks that tend to play this. For example, Spellbook, because they can take 2 blue boys and make it, or the Raccoon decks, that's the majority of the deck is level 2s, as well as from time to time, the Geargia deck can also make this, and it's a good way to push in for extra damage, as it allows a wind monster, usually itself, to attack twice, and with, 1500 attack, that is a good portion of, your opponent's life points. And so looking at this, the DTs, there's only about 20 listings, 19 actually, which isn't the most. And we do see that the graph is going up a little bit. But the thing to note with this is this seller right here has 78 of them. So there actually is quite a lot available, all, near mints here at about $10, and even then it doesn't really go up that much once you get past that big line. But the thing that is interesting to note is the secret rare has 13 listings, and with that, if we go down here to the near mint verified, we see that it's at about $8 to $9 and quickly on up to 15, even into the 30s once you get to the end of the page. So at that rate, the secret does look really good, but if you're gonna go for technically a higher rarity, a lot of people will consider the DT a higher rarity, and at the same value, you might as well kind of pick up the DT to an extent. Again, if you like the secret more, definitely go with that, but you might end up after, 1 or 2 of these leave, you might end up actually paying more for it, so that is something to keep in mind. And this is partially just because Yummy is coming to the TCG, and that is a level 2 focus deck. And so some people are thinking to tech this in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! And stuff, so that's why we are seeing a rise in the price there. Now, speaking of rank 2s, here is another rank 2 that you will see, again, usually in those same type of decks from time to time, and it also only has 2 printings, and that's going to be Shining Elf. While this won't really have any meta impact or anything, for H.A.T format, this is a card that if you're on one of those decks, it might be worth having a copy of this, as the only 2 printings are the common and the super, and obviously you see there is a lot of listings available for both, and so even here you see the prices down, but even that's kind of irrelevant with how cheap it is. Here we see a First Ed near mint. This one's unverified for like 44 cents, and hopefully we can find a near mint real quick. Here we'd see one also for about 50 cents. So this is just kind of one of those penny stonk cards, which I don't even really see going up in price at the current moment, but you do want to make sure you have one. It being a spellcaster is sort of relevant for Spellbook and stuff like that, and its effect is like kind of all right. It just makes an opponent's monster lose some attack, which means that sometimes it can be hard to get over, but it's just another one of those options that if you're playing Spellbook or even sometimes in the Raccoon deck or something like that, you are going to want to make sure you have your copy of this. Now, a slightly more generic card that you'll play in a lot of other decks is going to be Alikard, and Alikard hasn't had a reprint in quite some time. I personally thought it was going to get one in one of the rarity collections, especially given they had done like Ghostrick Angel of Mischief and stuff in the rarity collections, but unfortunately it just didn't get one, and as a result, every form of Alikard is actually money. We see the Ulti only has 29 listings. We see even the Shatter foils have a market price of almost $8. We have the original secrets with a market price of about $8. Again, I'm sure if we click on some of these, the first said near mint price might actually be a little more. Sometimes they're a little less, but we even see like the starting price of the lowest listing right now is going to be like $8, $7. Even the mega pack is like $5. And what's crazy to me is even the rares, if you want like not even really a foil version of this, I guess technically the shatter foil isn't really a foil in a way either, but we see that the rare even is worth some money here. If we go down to near mint, yeah, for verified, you're looking at like $6 to $7 for a rare Alikard, which is kind of wild. I mean, to be fair though, this is usually just a one of in whatever decks you would play it in, but there are a lot of decks that play this. Sometimes the Sylvan deck plays this, Geargia can play it. Things like Mermail can play it, just basically any deck that uses level 3s enough. And there are a lot of them in hat format, and just, again, every version of this is money. Hopefully we can get a reprint at some point that isn't like a common or something, or even, you know, something like a super and ultra would be nice, or if, you know, at this point we get a Starlight, which I can't really see given it's not seeing any current real play in the current meta, but you never really know with Konami, but this is something to keep an eye on. So anyways, guys, let's move on to the next card. Next up, we have Infernity Necromancer, another card that only has 2 printings, and realistically, it doesn't even have a hollow printing. It just has its original common, which you can get for very, very cheap. And then you have the DT common. These look really good. Personally, I'm a big fan of the dual terminal with the dots and stuff, so I like this a lot. And for a while, these had actually repopulated, and there had been a lot of listings, but now we see it's back down to only 8 listings. And while this deck doesn't see the most tops or anything in like kind of recent days, we do see that, you know, people are buying these up. And right now, hopefully this will load here, which it is. So we see about 8 listings, and even on the graph, I don't really like going by the graph, but we do see that it's kind of up in price, and it's showing only about $10. But if you go to where the near mints are, we see light plays at like $16, and the near mints are like 17, 18, 20, and then they're gone. So there's actually not that many near mints left on the market if you do want the higher rarity of these. And again, for a while, these had been repopulated. There had been like multiple pages almost of them, but right now we're seeing that there's not really that many left. And I'm kind of curious if we go to the sales data here, if they're selling, you don't even really see them selling consistently. Like the last one sold was, what, almost a month ago at this rate, and it was a moderate play at like $7, but here we see some near mints at like 16, we see one at 11, 13, so they have been slowly creeping up, and again, they've just been kind of disappearing off the market despite people not really buying these, or at least showing the sales data, so maybe people are just moving them in person, so that is something to keep an eye on. Again, only 2 printings, and speaking of Infernity cards, another card is the QCR Infernity Archfiends. While this graph, this is an even better example of why I don't like the graph, we see that the price has actually been going down, and it's showing right now it should be at about $6, give or take, but we see that there's only about 22 listings, and the lowest near mint verified is going to be about $9 to $10. And it's pretty consistent throughout the page, and we even see, you know, sellers with like 9 of them available. So it's not like something that's completely disappearing, but we are actually seeing a steady increase in this. And obviously in the Infernity deck in a hat format, you're going to be playing 3 of this. So it's one of those cards that can disappear off the market very, very quickly just because you kind of mandatory have to play 3 of it. So this is just another thing to keep in mind. There's tons of other versions of Archfiend, everything from like common to, I think there's even like a rare, a DT, an ultra. There's some supers. A lot of times those are foreign and stuff, but you just have a lot of different variants in this, even like gold rares and stuff. But if you specifically want the QCR, just keep in mind that they are slowly getting bought off the market, and they are slightly up in price at the moment. Now, I feel like every market watch I do, there's a different Spellbook card that's just disappearing off the market. It's a fan favorite deck, and there's always just this low quantities of printings for certain cards, and here we do see that again with Spellbook of Eternity that only has a rare and a super, and while there is a lot of rares available and pretty cheap at that too. We see that the Super only has 13 listings, and even though the market price right here is showing about $3 to $4 and even the lowest at $2, if we click on this, you'll actually see that this graph is very much so up in price. And again, here's an example, like $2, $3 on the graph. But if we go down to the first near mint, it's $4.40, but with $5 shipping. And after that, we quickly see it going to $11, $12, $14. And there aren't really that many. We see this person has a bunch of light plays at $12. They're unverified though. And after that, it's just a lot of 1s, 2s, a couple 3s. And so this is another one of those cards that usually the Spellbook deck is going to play about 2 of. So, you know, they are around. And if you don't care about the high rarity, there is those rares that are available. Though I know with Spellbook, since most of it does come really high rarity, a lot of people do like those. So that's just another card to keep in mind. Moving on to the next card here, we have Original Print Moraltac. And these had actually been down for quite some time. I know when the QCR came out and the Platinum, these had kind of dipped back down to around $2. And this was a card I was just kind of looking at because I know a lot of people really like their original printings of certain cards. And here we actually see on the first page, there's not even any first ed near mints. We see some unlim near mints for about, you know, $2 to $3. And you actually have to go like multiple pages, I'm pretty sure, when I was looking over this to even find some. Here we see some light plays around $3. But to actually get to near mints, they are up in price a bit. Again, here's some more unlim near mints. Just trying to find you guys some first eds here. Here's some first ed light plays for about $4, give or take. We still haven't seen a near mint first ed though yet, and that is a little concerning that these are starting to go back up in price. Here we see the first near mint. This person has 3 of them at about $5.50 and quickly on up to $6. So if you do want a set of originals, you know, they are starting to creep back up in price. So that is something to keep in mind. Obviously, there's things like the commons if you don't care about rarity. There's also the QCRs and Platinums and stuff like that that are also like pretty cheap in price. I think the last time I looked at the QCRs, they were, I want to say, like almost the same price as these, if not a little cheaper. So if you want like those QCRs, I would definitely suggest looking into those as well. But keeping it original is going to cost you a little bit here. And while we're on the topic of artifacts, I've gone over Ignition in another one of these videos in the past, but we have been seeing a little more movement as well lately. So going to the secrets, that's technically the highest rarity because there's just 2 ultras. We see that now they are, you know, pushing in the $1.50 to $2 range, whereas before they were closer to only $1. So we are seeing them slowly go up in price, and there's still a good amount of quantities available. Like here we see 47 listings. So definitely not something that you necessarily need to rush in and buy, but just keep in mind if you technically want the secret being the highest rarity, that these are, you know, slowly creeping up a little bit. And it's another one of those cards that usually decks are going to play at the 2 to 3 copy range. So when people want enough of them, they will kind of go off the market. But the other thing to keep in mind, again, is going back to the originals. Finding first ed near mint originals is something that's becoming a little less easy to find. Here we see like light plays in the $3 range, but actually looking for a near mint first ed copy here, we see that they are around, you know, $5, give or take. And so that is something that, you know, you can basically get almost a playset of secrets for the cost of just 1 near mint original. Don't get me wrong, the ultras do look really nice. These did have that problem where a lot of people used to play them back in the day. Well, they didn't necessarily play them a lot back in the day. That's a whole topic for another video, but they do get those nail indents a lot just from how people used to treat cards and stuff. So that's something to keep in mind. Again, that sometimes these near mints might actually be closer to light plays depending on how you look at it. But even then, these are kind of going up in price. Next up on my list is Pot of Duality from the Pot collection. This is a card that I actually was looking into for a while, and I just waited too long to pick up more copies of. I really like these in terms of the card quality. They're kind of thick, and also the design is very unique and really nice. And these have actually basically doubled in price. For a while, we do see they dip down to about the $10 price, and even now, again, the graph is showing they're only about 10, but going down here, they are at 10 listings, and the lowest is going to be almost $20. And you can see, other than this person that has 17, once these leave, they quickly go up in price to, 27 all the way on to $40. And we've seen this in the past with a lot of cards from the Pot collection. For example, Moray of Greed was a very good example of one of these cards that just out of nowhere will shoot up in price because of the exclusivity of this, this release with the Pot collection. And again, these look really nice. And so just be aware that if you have these have started creeping back up in price. They were down for a little bit, but now we see that price going up. And similarly, here we see Torrential Tribute CRs have been going up in price. Now, there is a QCR of this card, and the thing is with the QCR of this, it came out in the tins, the mega tins, and as a result, unlike other cards in the rarity collections and stuff, this didn't get the CR, the secret, the platinum, and all of that. So if you want a CR, you have to go to the Grand Creator set, and as a result, people who like the CRs, especially for people that are trying to pick up all of the prismatic CRs from the different rarity collections, because some people don't like the QCRs, and also some of the QCRs are so expensive that we've been seeing more people kind of leaning towards the CR market. And so if you want your staples and stuff to match, the CR here is looking like it's about $16. For a while, these had dropped when the QCR was announced and stuff, and these had been, I want to say, somewhere around like the $6 to $10 range, but here we see them at 16, and again, quickly on up to about $20 to $25. There are a lot of these around, like this person has 3, this one has 4, 7, 4. So they are around, and even originally when I checked this, there had only been, I think, like 15 listings. So there are more people listing these. Let's look at the sales data. We see them from time to time getting bought up at about the 16, 10, 16, 30. That's kind of wild that someone actually paid that. And, this person bought 5 at 16, but that was over a month ago. So just keep that in mind if you are looking for a CR torrential, that these are starting to slowly creep up in price as well. Another card that I noticed was going up in price is the alti copies of Bujin Susanoo. At the NAWCQ, I mentioned in one of my videos for my recap that a lot of people were playing Bujin, and I guess it's just one of those fan favorite decks, and as a result, obviously we see the Mega Pack Ultra and the original print Ultra are still very cheap. Even if you want that, platinum rare Susanoo from the Megatins from forever ago, it's very cheap, but the alti we see has only 13 listings, and so people that are trying to get the Susanoos to match the alti Yamatos, these are kind of just gone in a way. If you go down to the near mint verified first eds, you're looking at almost $20 again before quickly shooting up in price, and a lot of these sellers only have about 1 copy available, and in the Bujin deck you're playing minimally 2 of this. So, and even then, a lot are playing 3. So just keep that in mind that if you want these to match, they aren't lasting too long. It looks like hopefully more will populate, but just in case, you might want to get your sets if you don't already have them. And another Xyz that is surprisingly, I guess, kind of the opposite effect here is the Quarter Century Abyss Dweller. Personally, I'm picking up a lot of these when I go to events and stuff, and that's just because this is a card that right now, there's a lot of listings available. Obviously, this card got banned in the TCG, and we see that it's only at about $2 now, which feels really cheap for, in hat formats specifically, a card that's in like almost every extra deck that can make a rank 4. It just hits everything in the format, whether that be like artifacts, Mermail, Dragon Rulers, etc. The hands, there's so much stuff. And at one point, if we look at the graph even here, we see that they had hit almost $17 at one point. So while I don't see this card coming back in the TCG anytime soon, for $2 to have a nice looking rarity of Abyss Dweller in your hat format deck, this might be a good option to go with. And even down to the end of the page, they're only looking like about $3, which isn't bad. And there are a lot of pages available too. So just a kind of cool like penny stonk card potentially. And even then, if this card came off the ban list at any point, it would definitely shoot up in price like most ban cards do. But again, I'm not telling you to go out and buy these, but it is a nice option if you want a shiny Abyss Dweller. The last card I want to talk about for this video is going to be holo versions of Lila. This card gets played in a handful of different hat format decks and also has like crossover with things like Edison and stuff like that. And there's a handful of different rarities for the holos. We see the Super here. There's the Battles of Legend Light's Revenge Ultra. There's the original Ultra. There's the reprint Ultra. And then obviously there's the Alties and stuff like that. Even the reprint Alties are up in price. And I think that's partially just because not that many people actually wanted to open this set. But we see that even those are in the 50s plus, which is kind of wild for the reprint. Personally, I don't like how these look and they all come unlimited. But going back to the kind of lower end ones, here we see the supers from the Battle Pack 2 set. We see that these are actually up in price a little bit. And I guess a little bit isn't even the right thing to say, because here we see that for verified near mint first is like $6 for just a kind of random super and stuff like that. So that is a little wild. And here we even see there was only about 13 listings, which seems to be the amount of listings on a lot of these cards right now. But then after that, you can get the Ultra. These look decently different because it has the newer foiling where the attributes and stuff is holo versus like the originals didn't have that. And here we see that those are about $2. So you can, depending on how many you need, get these for decently cheaper than those super rares. And then there's going to be the different ultras and stuff like that that are also worth a good amount of money. It kind of will vary on if you want the first ed and the near mint and all of that thing. Some people don't really care given that they're just going to be playing with it. But in general, if you guys do want holo printings, it is going to cost you a little more. There's tons of commons available that are all like under 50 cents. So if you just need a copy, then that's also a safe bet to go with. But anyways, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like on it, comment any questions or videos you want to see in the future, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell to get notified anytime I put a new video out, share this video with your friends, and if you guys are looking forward to seeing more hat format market watch, definitely let me know in the comment section down below. But anyways, guys, I will see you in the next video.